Welcome to this episode of Creatively Speaking. I'm Leanna Weller-Smith, the Executive Creative Director for Weller-Smith Design, and in this episode, I'll be speaking with Nour Zibdeh. She is a registered dietitian and functional nutritionist. We talk about her journey from author to expert. She self-published a cookbook on her own, and she talks about the process that she took, some of the pitfalls along the way, but then where this book has taken her to this day with new opportunities and exposure. I hope you enjoy this episode, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop us a line. Hey, Nour, I'm so glad that you're joining me. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to have you on because I know we've known each other for a little while now, and I just think that your story and around publishing and what you've accomplished so far is really inspiring. So I guess just to start, if you could just tell us a little bit about you, what you do, what your business is, I think that that would be great.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited that you are doing this and you asked me to join. So my name is Nour. A lot of people ask me, how do you say it? It's Nour Zibdeh. And we met in 2015. I remember the first time we were in New York, we were like lined up to waiting for lunch, trying to order lunch, and the 90-day year event. So so I have, my practice and my business have evolved, but what I've been focusing on lately and what truly speaks to what I love to do and the people I help is I work with people who have digestive disorders, whether it's like diseases like Crohn's disease and colitis, or even just discomfort, like having too much bloating and gas and diarrhea. So it's the topics that most people don't really share in public, but these are things that are really uncomfortable, can affect the quality of your life. And what a lot of people don't realize is that they affect people with chronic fatigue, muscle pain, headaches, autoimmune conditions are also related to the gut. And so I also help people with these, conditions. So, and I use an integrative and functional nutrition approach. So it's really exciting to be where I am today.
No, it is exciting. And it's very interesting because I feel like probably in the last 4 years, I'd say, even for myself, I feel like just like a whole different look on your health and wellness is really like the whole gut thing and all of that. It's really interesting because so much stems from there and a lot of people just don't understand it. And with our diets that we have now, it's really interesting. And I have MS, so it's always one of those things like, how can I heal my body with food and instead of medication? So I think it's awesome what you're doing and to help people actually get past those things.
And I could spend the whole hour talking about autoimmune diets and gut, which I know that's not what you're here for.
But we can talk on the side.
And then, a lot of people are just becoming to realize this. They don't want medications. They don't want to depend on them. They want to know why this all started. So this is a really great place to be in. Blessed and thankful for the opportunity to help the people I help. So that's really definitely a reward of what I do.
So is that how you got started with recipes? Like I'm so curious as to how then you took the jump from, what you do, but then also providing like this massive amount of information that you put together in your cookbook.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So I think the cookbook was a product that I did throughout 2015. So now it's been 3 years. And so back then my business wasn't focused as much as it is right now. So I was, I'm a dietitian. I have my master's degree. I have my training. I wanted to help everyone and everything. And the book was, what I ended up happening is my first book, which is the cookbook, the recipe book, I called it the Detox Way. What happened is, I was like thinking, I forgot, I have a copy somewhere else. Yes, thank you.
I have it.
So what happened is that, my patients would ask for recipes and then I would go to this website and that website and be like, oh, here's a recipe, but cut the amount of sugar, use this oil that's better than the vegetable oil than they're using. And then I would look at a recipe and I'm like, wow, this is really bland. It's not going to taste good just because I cook with a lot of spices. And so nobody likes bland food. Or some people do, but it just adds more interest and nutrition to the meals. And so I found myself like going to websites, printing a recipe, scribbling a ton of things to the point where I was like, wait, that's completely a different recipe. Or like it wouldn't have enough protein in it, and I wanted my patients to eat a little bit more protein. So I decided that I'm just going to put my recipes together, and I've been blogging since 2009, and so I've had some recipes on my blog. So I decided that, I'm just going to compile them and give them as a PDF giveaway for my. That's how it started. And before I knew it, I was like adding more recipes, and I'm like, ooh, like this kind of recipe would be so cool. And then, I need to add a few more smoothies and a few breakfasts, and I need to teach them how to do zucchini noodles. And so like all of those things, that it just exploded to the project that it ended up being a full book.
Well, I know when you and I started talking about it, you had already done all this. You'd already started it. You'd already gotten a lot of it done, and you were really looking for how to format it at that point, like, because you had all this stuff. But I'm curious, like, when you had all this information, but then how did you get it started? I feel like so many authors, they have all this content, right? And then they just don't know what their next step is. Like, what did you go through to get to the point of talking to me?
Yes. So I had an assistant back then in my office, and she was doing mostly like the admin work. And so I was like, okay, you know what? I told her, like, okay, you're going to put the book and the recipes in a Word document, and then we're going to make it into a PDF, a lot of like home, DIY stuff.
Yeah.
And then she looked at me and she's like, you know what? I'm not good at this. You need a professional. You need someone to make it look good. And I'll make sure that the headlines are lined up and all of that stuff. And, I think, and I had to just say stop to myself. I think my husband had to just like stop me from going crazy, because like I would, there was a couple years ago, we had a big blizzard and we were for 6 days stuck at home. I can tell you, I made 10 recipes, took pictures of them, because we were stuck at home and cooking. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to cook recipes and add them to my book. My husband had to be like, stop, you're not adding one more recipe.
The voice of reason.
Exactly. And I had the other person tell me, like, you're not doing this yourself in-house. You got to find someone to do it for you. And I think it's just part of, maybe it's, and maybe this comes in our business, like meetings and stuff. Like sometimes I don't realize how big of a project that I'm undertaking, or how the impact of it. Like, I think it's just little me in this little corner of the world doing something that only a few people would want to realize that, wait, this can be a real thing. So for me, I needed other people to just kind of tell me that.
Now, did you then do the photography? Did you have anyone else involved, like a recipe tester or an editor at all, or how did you approach that?
That was a lot doing myself. So I've been taking photos for my blog for some time. And so I had a decent camera. And then my neighbor has a side photography business. And so she let me borrow her camera and do that. And they're real, like I'd make the food and then we'll eat it that day. So there were no tricks, no like chemical, like if you read like food photography, there are a ton of them. Like you can put petroleum jelly. Yeah. And this is edible food. And so, after like realizing what other people do for their food to look good, to know that, these are real pictures. That was like part of the selling process, because I'm like, your food can actually look like that. It does not need a professional to make it look good. Now, my pictures could have been better, but I've also seen food cookbooks with pictures that are not better. So I'm like, it's pretty good. It was, so that was the photography. The taste testing, my kids, if they didn't like something, a lot of people will not like it. I've definitely hosted parties for friends and stuff when I'm experimenting with recipes, and then, okay, that was nobody liked it. They were really nice about it, but nobody really liked it. So it was very informal. Like I didn't have a professional team to do it. And I don't think I the resources. I didn't have the resources back then to hire that. And I had my assistant proofread the book. A couple of my friends did that or did parts of the book. So it was really helpful, but it was still a small project. I didn't have professional help at that point.
Yeah. But I noticed when I got it, and I think I even told you, which was, I was like, wow, you did an amazing job for and I have done tons of cookbooks, all different ranges from all different types of, high end, low end. And I was like, oh my gosh, Nour, this is fantastic. It should be a book. So I was excited to actually help you with this. And what was interesting is we approached it a little different than what I normally do, which is we found a template. So for yours, you bought a design template, and I thought, well, maybe this will help streamline the process. And I'm bringing this up because I feel like with every project, there's always different limitations, whether it's money or this or that, and it's like trying to fit within the budget of the person, right? So we found a template. But what's interesting is with the template, there was still a lot of work that had to be done, because I try to reiterate that a book designer is a little bit different than a regular designer, because a book designer knows pagination, and just like your assistant said, having the headlines on the same spot and having different things be the same consistently. And so we had to actually take those templates and set them up so that they did that for you. And we sent this to a professional typesetter. So she was the one. So my friend Barbara, she set it all up. She did an amazing job. So you can see, I'll just hold up a couple of pages. You can see how beautiful even the typesetting is that she did. But then on top of it, you've got these great combination of Nour's photos and some stock photos, which I think is always great because it rounds things out. It makes it so much easier to fill out your book, which I love a nice colorful book. And you did an amazing job, because a lot of the stuff you sourced yourself. I didn't help you source any of it. So I think it turned out really, really great. You did self-publish it. You did all the research yourself. You went through IngramSpark. And I'm curious how you felt like that process was for you. I know it was a while ago, but I know you did your research between Amazon and Ingram. So I'm curious what you had done. It was more
Yeah, and actually I kind of want to give you a lot of credit, Leanna, because when you had emailed me back telling me wow, this book is worth publishing. And I think you tried to help me find someone to publish it. You have no idea the confidence that gave me, because sometimes, again, I wasn't new in business, but it was the first time I do something, and I just don't have a frame of reference. I don't know what's out there, and I don't know what goes into books, and I love my stuff, but I just didn't know what to compare it to. And so thank you.
Definitely
it made a big difference. So I think what happened between IngramSpark and Amazon, I think you are the one who suggested that, actually. And so you had suggested few names for publishing. And I think I just went to their websites and I was just punching the numbers in and then finding the best deal, to be honest, because I had a 200-page book and I needed that to be in color. I couldn't do black and white, obviously, for a cookbook. And so when you put the size of the book, whether it's I don't know what the standard, the letter size versus a smaller box with the page number, I think I just went with the one that gave me the better deal in terms of mass production, whether I think with IngramSpark, I can order, and stock in my house or office or whatever I want. And then they also do print on demand. So the nice thing, I eventually went with IngramSpark, is that they themselves put it up on Amazon. So the book right now is on Amazon, and it was really nice because I ordered initially stock, and I have it in my house and my office, and I would sell to my patients. And when I go to events, I have my book, and I sold all of my initial stock. But then as my business quite changed a little bit, I decided that it's so much easier to have that available on Amazon. And it was funny because one of my to-do lists was to figure out how to publish on Amazon. And then randomly I get an email from someone saying, hey, I bought your book from Amazon. I was like, yes, I don't have to do that. I don't have to learn how to do it. So it's just out there, and it's kind of nice because every quarter I get a report of the sales, and it's nice to see that something got taken care of by itself without me worrying about it.
Yeah, I know, because there's so many moving parts to it. And there are like, and it's what's interesting is there is a difference between IngramSpark and then publishing through Amazon. So it's just, there's so many little nuances, and I won't even go into it because it's pretty complicated. But you were able to figure out which one would work the best for you. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So from this cookbook, what do you think? Like, I know what has kind of happened since then, but you'll have to tell us, like, really, like, what this cookbook that you put together yourself, what it has brought to you.
So the cookbook had definitely given me opportunities to, like, for example, like I'm published, so I can say I have a book. When I have gone to local events and do workshops, I would always bring some copies with me, and then people can go home if they would like to buy it, then they would go home with something from me. It made life easier when I had patients ask me for a million recipes. It just streamlined even the way I provide my service to my patients, because I'm like, here's my book. And I've definitely got, so I love the topic. I love talking about it. So other than that, I just, what it allowed is I got another, I was approached by a publisher who wanted to write a book on acid reflux. And at that point, it was interesting because a few months before that, I made a conscious business decision to focus really on digestive disorders and gut health issues. So that was the perfect book topic. But when I was talking with the editor, they were still like, we didn't really confirm, like it wasn't still a done deal. I was told, I'm like, hey, I self-published a book. I know what it's like. I know what it's like to complete a project or the editing, and I think that made a big difference in why we went through with the book and now it's completely done. But I think I remember having this conversation the minute I told the person I was talking with, oh, and by the way, I published a book. She had immediately went and looked it up on Amazon, and she was like, oh, that looks good. Okay, you did it yourself. Wow, I can tell the excitement. And now that I have 2 books under my name to publish differently, but now I can say I'm an author, I'm a published author, and these are the things that I do. And I think it just adds a level of credibility and an expertise. Like, I'm an expert in my field, and I think a book will do that for anybody in their field.
Yeah, I think that was really exciting when they approached you for that. What was like the difference, since you had to do it all yourself initially? I think this one, you obviously had help through the publisher. So what was that like? Was it just, I don't know, easier? It had to have been easier. You didn't have to worry about photos or anything, right?
No, yeah. So with that, it was, I would say, easier because there was a team, there was a project manager, sort of, there was a timeline. So as you know, when you do something yourself, you are setting your own timeline, and things happen, or like myself, I wanted to keep adding things to it. And so the timeline just kind of just accountability, like this is going to get written in this time frame. These are the chapters, the topics. It was nice to work with someone who has done books before, because the organization, like, I don't know how other people, like how everyone, writes a book, but it was just really nice to have the headings and the subheadings determined before, and then it was just easier. It almost felt like writing a bunch of articles and then putting them together and then making sure they all flow. There was definitely a team. There were at least 2 editors, a couple of rounds of editing. We had a recipe developer, so she actually the one who did the recipes. We worked together, collaborated on the types of recipes, but I didn't have to taste and test everything. And definitely the photography, I didn't have to take pictures of everything. And to be honest, I think I could have, if I wanted to do the recipes, I could have. But knowing from my cookbook how long that takes and how much work it took to come up with all the recipes and the pictures, I opted to have that support so that it will be produced faster.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So what's the name of it? You'll have to tell us the name.
It is called, you have a second for me to get up, and it's just.
Oh, yeah. Go grab it for sure.
All right.
I don't have a copy of it.
All right, so this is the second book. It's called The Complete Acid Reflux Diet Plan, and it's designed for people who have just been diagnosed with acid reflux, GERD, or LPR. It's actually a very easy read, and as you can see, there are tabs and things that make a book look good, and
easily organized
in there. Yeah. Yeah. Now, the only difference is this book, we don't have a picture for every recipe.
Sure.
When I self-published, I think I have a picture for every recipe except for one. And I still feel like I want to go back and make that recipe again. But at this point, I think it's okay. I think people will forgive me for.
I think they'll forgive me for it. But I do have to admit, I love. So since I do a lot of cookbooks, I love the cookbooks that the author has taken the photos, because they usually give you just a ton of stuff. So you have you can layer them or do, you just have more than one for each recipe. And I think it's kind of cool to see the different angles and the different views of because I'm not a great cook. I will admit, I do tons of cookbooks, but I'm just not that great. So I love seeing all these different sort of process photos as to how they got from here to there. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah.
You'll have to tell me, since you've done both types of publishing, what would you, what kind of, tips would you give to somebody who actually wants to put together a recipe or a cookbook or any kind of book initially? Any kind of tips would be fantastic.
Yeah. I think definitely if you have the resources, definitely get help, because it is a big project. And the help that you and Barbara and just, the insights, when you print a book, you don't know how much space it needed to bind the book, or the left and right, or for example, that you need to leave some pages on one side because you're going to have odds and even, just things like that. You don't think of okay, we're starting a chapter, so we need to leave an empty page, because having someone to help you if someone has the resources, I think it's definitely worth it. It just will save you a lot of headache and save you time. I mean, one of the things, I've had some recipes already done on my blog, and I did recipes for the book. The whole thing took, I think, a year at least.
Yeah.
And that to do in a PDF format. I initially started selling it in a PDF. Mm-hmm. And then there were a bunch of people asking me how to print. And I was actually looking at how to print at Kinko's. And I was like, nah, that's not going to work. And so I would say it took even more than a year. And I think if I had a team, if I had someone who would support me, and I knew, because I reached out to you really towards the end, but if I had someone from the beginning, I think it would have taken me 6 months. I don't know how much, but I think it would have helped. For someone who wants to do it, I think just organizing your thoughts, if you want to do a cookbook, what kind of recipes do you want to offer? Is this a breakfast book, a smoothie book? Is it an ethnic type book? Is it 30-minute meals? Is it a sandwich book? I think that helps. My book is called The Detox Way, and I wanted clean recipes. It's actually gluten-free, dairy-free, corn-free recipes, because these are the kind of recipes my patients were looking for. But it wasn't paleo necessarily, because I do have some stuff, but it was paleo friendly. So kind of knowing who your audience, who is going to pick up your book. Is that someone who has a lot of experience in the kitchen and wants fancy recipes? Is this someone with a restrictive diet and they need things that would follow a certain plan, or an elimination, not necessarily a bad way, restrictive diet, but they're on a specific diet? Is this for someone who wants to feed their children? Who is this for? And then having what kind of recipes you want to put in the book. And I think planning. I think I was super productive on those days when we were stuck in the storm, because I batch cooked. I batch cooked. I batch photography as well too. And then also when you do home photography, you're really a slave to the sun.
Yeah.
Really. If the sun is out, you have good pictures. If the sun is not out, you don't have good pictures. And because I don't have all the setup for the photography, and I'm sure I could, but it's not the main focus right now. And so like, that's why in the winter, it's hard to take pictures because the sun goes down fast. And so like, it just complicates some things. But so like, and I actually, there were days when I had someone at home when I knew I was going to be cooking a lot of recipes. Someone was actually helping me wash dishes and clean up. It's just because I was like, it was too much to do all of that together. And so, you know, that's another time where, you know, getting some help would be really helpful. But, you know, if you, you know, have some friends try it, or, you know, if you have family members who are willing to try, it's really important to have someone proofread, because you know your stuff too much, and then you stop reading every single word, and there are a lot of places where there are typos. So that's really important. And I mean, but if you, I think it's fun. It's a great way. Maybe kind of put a limit on the number of pages, because I think I needed someone to tell me to stop.
Yeah.
You have enough. You are enough. You have enough.
You have enough.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I think you gave some really great tips. And I think one that I always tell people too, especially when it comes to cookbooks, or even like, you know, interior design books, or books that aren't more of like story trade publications. Like, I always tell them, have that unique perspective on what you do, and that's what is going to make people pick up the book. So it is about niching down, figuring out what it is you want to focus on, and sticking with it, and then what makes you different. And on top of it, like, I think you have a great niche, and I think on top of it, you've really been able to actually help people be creative with their food. Like you said, you like to cook with spices, you have a different flavor. And I think that is what's missing. I think that now more of that is coming out in the last couple seasons of cookbooks that I've seen. There's just a lot more ethnic food, a lot more flavor, but it's healthy. And I think that that's exciting a lot of people. So you gave us a ton of great information there. Thank you so much. I think that people are going to find it so valuable. You'll have to tell us where we can find you. I'll definitely make sure I put the links and everything when I post the videos. So
yeah, absolutely. So my website is just my first and last name. So that's the best way to find me. It's nourzibdeh.com. And the books are probably the best way, if somebody wants to get them, is from Amazon. So I can send you the links for that. The one is called the Detox Way, and the other is the Acid Reflux Diet Plan. And, you know, the nice thing about, you know, with the option of print on demand is, you know, I decided that I don't have space, or I want to streamline my business, and I don't want to order copies at my home. Actually, and just to put it into perspective, with IngramSpark, you can order, I ordered 100 or 110.
Right.
I also looked at printing options with China.
Yeah, I think I even gave you some numbers. I think.
And we did, and then I had someone else who had published a kids' storybooks, that were very pretty books, but give me someone's contact in China, and then you have to order a minimum of 2,000 or 2,500 books. It is cheaper per book, but it's a lot of
books.
And I was like, I don't want to invade my home. Like, I don't want the space. I don't want, also the worry, like, I don't want to worry about inventory. And then there's also time, like, you have to send your manuscript, and it takes 6 weeks or months to get it back.
Yeah, I think it takes like 60 days to get even just the shipping of it.
Yeah, so I just like decided to print locally, and I think you can choose the quality of the paper that you want. And with IngramSpark, I think they sent me a sampler of recipes, and then this is that paper, and then this is this paper. And I looked at the options and made the best decision based on like quality and price and all of that stuff. So I thought it was a really good experience, and it seems a little overwhelming, but I think it wasn't too bad. Like, it can be done if someone wants. Well,
I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me about this. I'm super happy for you in the second book, and I know there's more that's to come. This is just the beginning for you. So I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And I'm excited for all the stuff that you're up to. So yeah, can't wait to see what everything happens.
All right. Thanks, Nour.
Yeah, thanks, Leanna.